If you have your Bible with you, you can open it up this morning to the book of Romans, chapter 12. We've been doing a series on Sunday mornings called Radical Love, the incredible teachings of Jesus and the apostles to the early Christians, God's commandment and his direction for us to walk in a kind of love that is completely foreign to our native and natural way of caring for each other. And I believe that these messages have an important role in our lives. So I want to encourage you to just open your heart and receive what we're going to be talking about today. The book of Romans was written by the Apostle Paul, one of the earliest leaders of the Christian faith, to a large and growing church in the city of Rome in the first century, a church that was diverse culturally, ethnically, and also very diverse as it came to their religious backgrounds. There was a minority of Jewish people that founded the church, and now they were outnumbered by the large numbers of Gentiles that had come into the Christian faith, and they came in from other backgrounds, pagan backgrounds, where they worshiped many gods or household gods, and there were a lot of tensions in the church. So Paul is writing to this early church, introducing his ministry to them because his plan was to go and visit them. And he was addressing specifically the cultural divide in the church. And he was talking about how we're called to reach across those lines and love each other. And Paul begins the first really 11 chapters of Romans talking about everything that God has done to bring us together, to heal the divide between us, to bring Gentiles into the kingdom of God, to bring Jews into the kingdom of God, and now to make one new community together because of his love for all of us equally. None of us deserve it. All of us, when we get saved, get something we don't deserve. And all of us, whether we have a religious background or we come from a very non-religious background, we all need God's gift of Jesus Christ. But once you come to Christ, now how do we respond? How do we love God back for what he's done for us? And Paul says we've got to start by changing the way we think. And the most important thing we need to recognize is the way that we love God back is not demonstrated in some individual thing we do to him or for him. It's demonstrated in the way we treat each other. God says, I loved you this way. Now you pay it back to me by loving one another with the same love that I've loved you. And so in Romans chapter 12 and verse 9, Paul begins by telling us that we are supposed to love in truth, in reality, without hypocrisy or pretending to love each other. So let's begin in Romans chapter 12 and verse 9. We're going to look through this passage and we're going to pull out a couple of really important verses. Romans 12 and verse 9. Let love be without hypocrisy. Abhor what is evil, cling to what is good. Be affectionate and kind to one another with brotherly love, in honor, giving preference to one another. Not lagging in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer, distributing to the needs of the saints. Those would be other Christians. Given to hospitality, that would be the way you treat people that are not Christians or strangers. Bless those who persecute you. This is the way you treat enemies. So he talks about how you treat Christians, how you treat non-Christians, and now how you treat people, whether they're saved or not, that have become your enemies. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Be of the same mind towards one another. Do not set your mind on high things or be prideful, but associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own opinion. Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. Now, verse 18 is what we're going to really work on today. And Paul says this, if it is possible, as much as it depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Now, the word men there is the Greek word anthropos, which really isn't, it's best mankind or humans or people. We would, the best translation today would be live peaceably with all people. It's not talking about males, it means everyone, okay? Whether they're believers or non-believers or people that have really become enemies, no matter what category they fall in, you need to live at peace. And I want to look at this one phrase where Paul says, as much as it depends on you. So today, I want to talk about radical love. What depends on you? Everybody say, what depends on me? In the New Living Translation, it reads this way, do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. All that you can. I like that. What are you able to do to be at peace with everyone? that you have a relationship with. Now, the first thing I want to recognize, and I want you to look at, is this. In this passage, we have it really clearly. There's a part that different people play in relationships. If we're going to be in healthy and good relationships, we're going to have to recognize the part that we play. And when I say play, I don't mean pretend or act. I mean there is a role, there is a function, there is a responsibility that we have in our relationships with others. And then there's a responsibility that God has in our relationship with others. And there's a responsibility that other people have in their relationship with us. Now, you can't do God's part for him. He doesn't expect you to do his part. I'm confident that God will take care of his role, right? And this is another thing you really got to surrender to. You can't do the other person's part for them. They have a role. And the thing we've got to realize, and this is the barrier we've got to jump over, because in our culture today, love is very much based on reciprocity. It's based on this idea that, I love you, then you love me, then I love you. There's got to be this reciprocity. But love cannot be dependent on someone else's response. Human love is that way, but God's love is not. God's love is extended to the unfaithful, the unthankful, the unholy. Even before they accept or receive his love, he loves them first. And the Bible says that's the kind of love we need to have for each other. Remember, we talked about the kind of love that Jesus had while they were crucifying him, killing him, laughing and mocking him. He said, Father, forgive them. He forgave them even before they said they were sorry. And the Bible says that we need to love each other with the love that he has for us. That is a radically high bar, and it takes the power of the Holy Spirit to really do it in relationship. So we're going to talk about the part that depends on us. Now, great relationships are hard work. Can I just say that again? Great relationships are hard work. I know that we kind of have this idea that we're going to meet somebody, whether we're in a romantic relationship or even a friendship, and that we're going to just instantly have this magical connection. And the really great relationships in our lives are the relationships that don't require any work. There's no such thing. And so you need to recognize, we all need to recognize that to have great relationships, it's hard work. Now listen, any relationship can be great for a weekend. You can meet somebody and feel like, oh my gosh, we're so connected. We're so, friendship, romantic. This is incredible. And then you think, we're going to have to get together again. And you start in your mind thinking, we're going to start hanging out and doing stuff. And you go out with them another time. Maybe you go get some coffee if they're a friend, or you go on a date. And it's like you're looking at them and you're like, in this light? I don't know what I was thinking. Or you notice their little picadillos. Or suddenly you start, it's like, what was I thinking, right? Because any relationship, anybody can be great at the right moment at the right time. It's sort of like any NFL team can beat any other NFL team on any given day if the circumstances are right. Even the San Francisco 49ers. That was just for Pastor Lee. That was just for him. Unless, of course, they're playing the Patriots. But just deal with it. You may not like it, but they're the greatest. All right. Now, any relationship can be great for a weekend. Some relationships can be really good for a few months. Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody and it's really good and it's working out and you kind of, it seems natural, but listen, this is so important. Truly great relationships are the result of applying learned skills intentionally over a long period of time. A relationship is not great, it's not this magical thing we just have always gotten along. Now, there are relationships in my life, the minute I met them, I felt like I met somebody that I've known for years. And there's a destiny to that relationship. But things change, life changes, roles change. There's people that you're really close to at a certain season of your life, and in your life and role and paths part, and you're not going to have the same intensity of relationship with everybody at every stage in the same way. We have to realize that. And some relationships come into our life for a while, we impart something, and then life shifts, and we're not in the same level of closeness or intimacy. But I'm not even talking about intimacy. I'm just talking about really great relationships that work. They're going to require you to work. They're not just simple. And you can be in the relationship with the woman or the man God has called you to be with, and you can actually have an incredible relationship, but at some point that relationship is going to be tested. If you're in any period of time, there's going to come a moment where it is hard work, where everybody, I don't care who they are, everybody at certain times is not going to be as wonderful as you think they are. And I have had the privilege of, being in ministry and meeting some amazing people, meeting some people that are far smarter and far more gifted than I am, and having blessed to have some relationships with folks that aren't in ministry, leaders and, folks who are in business. And I've learned this as a pastor working with people. Nobody is as great or as happy as they appear. Everybody has stuff. Everybody has a skeleton. Yes, everyone. Everybody wakes up in the morning and has a bad breath moment. Everybody has a bad hair day. Everyone has a bad face in the mirror morning. I mean, everyone, there's going to be moments, and you can't just scroll through somebody's Facebook page and say, oh my God, I'm missing out on so much, because that is not reality. Your Facebook page is not reality. And so we have to recognize to really, and by the way, just sending somebody a friend invitation doesn't mean they're a friend. We live in a world where we've got lots of friends, but we don't really know each other very well. For all of our connectedness, people are living so disconnected. And I have never met, I've just so many lonely people. And a lot of times it's because we have substituted the hard work of real relationship for digital substitutes. Or we have allowed our expectations to be formed more by carefully scripted reality television. I was just talking to somebody yesterday that I got my hair cut. What do you think? I don't care what you think. The point is, I got my hair cut, and the person who's been cutting my hair for like 8 years. She's an incredible person. She is working in the movie business here in Syracuse, which is really growing. There's like all these movies being made. There's another 7 that are about to be made. She was talking to me, and she's the hair and makeup stylist for this particular production company. So she's doing her job. She runs this shop, and then all day long she's been doing these TV productions. And they're doing one in Syracuse right now, and she was telling me about the location and what it's like to do all the hair. And she said it's like these actors. She says they've got every scene. They say hair, and I got to run in. I've got to make every hair out of place, make sure every hair out of place is in place. I've got to spray them and spritz them and dry shampoo them and wow. I'm like, wow, okay. And she said, you don't realize between all those scenes, there's a whole team of people that are making them look perfect. All day long, not just in the morning. I just thought, they put on makeup and did their hair in the morning. All day long, she said, it's so much work. I'm so exhausted at the end of the day. And a lot of times we look at those digital representations and we think, that is what I want. That's not reality. Right? At the end of the day, everyone's, got stuff. And if we're going to have real relationships with people, we're going to have to be willing to go into those places that aren't digitally enhanced in their lives. And we're going to have to bring kingdom principles into relationships. Just turn to somebody and say, if I'm going to have a relationship with you, it's going to be work. Just tell them right now. Tell them. All right. So in the rest of our time, I want to talk to you about some principles, some things that you have to develop in your life, and I have to develop in my life, if we're going to have truly great relationships and really see the love of God operating in our lives. All right? So if you got something to write with, or you've got a mobile device, I want you to just write these things down because I want you to think about them and let them stick with you. All right? Now, before I give you these things, I want to say to you that to everything I'm saying, there might be 100 exceptions. However, it doesn't mean that what I'm saying is wrong. Okay? And you can take anything that I'm saying and you can apply it in an extreme way and not balance it. Truth has got to be balanced. Okay? But I am wanting to press you a little bit this morning on some things that I think we've all got to be challenged on in this culture as it is today, that is it's going to require you to make some sacrifices and maybe change the way you think. I mean, Paul, what he's teaching, not just here, but through the rest of the book of Romans, is so radical. It's so opposite, even the way that religious people think today, that we've got to go where Paul goes and accept what God is saying to us through this apostle. And by the way, what Paul says, he's just repeating what Jesus said. And we're going to see that. So how many of you want to have great relationships? Well, this is your part. These are some things you have to build on your part. Romans 12:10 says, love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. The first thing that you have to develop in your life if you're going to have a great relationship, and this depends on your part, on you, you've got to be willing to give without expecting anything in return except from God. We live in a world that's I give, you give back, right? And there is a reciprocity in a healthy relationship. But you can't do the other person's part for them. And the fact is, you've got to walk in love with someone else, even if they never return it back to you. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be intimate with somebody, because intimacy is dependent on a certain amount of reciprocity. But you can still have a loving relationship and do the right thing, even if other people don't do the right thing right now. And sometimes it might take a while for them to do the right thing, but you've got to believe that sometimes you've got to give something, and sometimes you're going to be doing all the giving in a relationship. It's not always, well, I did this for you today, so I want this back. Sometimes people that we love and live with and that we have to have relationships with, sometimes they are not aware of their part, or they're not in a place to be able to give it. And it might be because they're just immature or they're selfish. But if my loving another person is dependent on their always loving me back perfectly, then I'll never have a good relationship, because no one in your life will ever love you perfectly. No one. And if you have to wait for someone to treat you perfectly or everything you want from a person in order to be happy, then you can't be happy in the Lord. Could you live in a life where you're doing most of the giving and other people are doing a lot of taking and still find joy in your life? Because I'm going to tell you, if you're going to really live in the love of God, there's going to be times in life that you're going to be doing a lot of giving. And you're going to have to be willing to give and expect nothing from that person back, but you can expect from the Lord. Everybody say from the Lord. This is what Jesus said in Luke 6:35. He said, love your enemies. So he's starting with the most extreme, situation. This is somebody that is just turned against you. Do good, and notice this, lend, hoping for nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you'll be the sons of the Most High, for he is kind to the unthankful and evil. In other words, there are times, now I'm not suggesting that if you're in the banking business, you apply this. These aren't principles for good business. These are principles for human relationship, okay? But there's times somebody's going to need something. Can you give me a ride? Can you loan me this? Can you help me with this? And you're going to be like, you know what? It's inconvenient. I don't really feel like it, but okay. And you're going to have to give. And sometimes, they're not going to give back. And I've heard it said, and I think it's pretty good. Never loan any money to a family member or even a friend that you can't afford to lose. If you can't afford to lose it, get a contract. But I'm not talking about business. I'm talking about human relationships. If you're going to be counting every penny, then you're going to often be angry and upset all the time. And there's going to be times in life and people that you're called to live with and love that are not going to give back. And Jesus said, lend. In other words, maybe the initial arrangement is, can I borrow this? Can you help me right now? And sometime I'll help you. And you're going to give it. But when you give it, even though the verbal agreement might be, but I'll help you sometime, do it not expecting them to do anything back for you. So what are you doing? You're expecting the Lord to give it back to you. And this principle is in the Old Testament. There's a verse in the Proverbs that says, he that is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and the Lord will pay them back. So sometimes, and you're thinking of just poverty, but somebody that has a need, let's just take a need, and they need something you've got, and you need to give or share with them, and maybe the initial arrangement is sometime they'll pay you back, but when you give it, just say, if they never pay me back, it's okay. It's okay because God will take care of me. Now, I'm going to just give you some thoughts. This means that in relationships, you have to give up the scorekeeping. Unless you are a referee or you're playing a card game and you're the person that's supposed to keep score. Scorekeeping in relationships is always going to cause you disappointment. Because invariably, you're going to be counting what you're doing, and you probably will miss some things that are coming your way. And the other thing is, if you're always keeping score, then you're not living in the relationship. You're waiting for you're giving with a motive to get something back. And in relationships, there are times and sometimes seasons where you have to be willing to take the short end of a stick. Now, not every time, but there are going to be seasons, if you're going to have great relationships, you're going to have to say, okay, I surrender. If you have to win, if you're the person in a relationship that is always, okay, I gave them this. You know, I've got a relative like this. Anything I give them for Christmas, they're like figuring it out. How much is this worth? How much? And if I didn't give them the exact, or they didn't give back to me the exact value, they'll either be frustrated or they'll add something to it, or they say, you know, this is too much, because they're always thinking about, what do you owe me? What do I owe you? This back and forth thing. In good relationships, great relationships, there's going to be times you're going to be investing and giving, and you're going to feel like, I'm not getting anything back. And that just means it has to go on forever. But there are seasons where sometimes you've got to do all the heavy lifting. And in a marriage, there are times when the wife is just need, and the husband just has to sacrifice. At the same time, there are seasons where the husband is just he's not aware or in a place to be able to be reciprocitous, but the wife is in a covenant relationship. She's going to have to give. And sometimes you're going to have to give and just expect the Lord to pay you back. And if you're scorekeeping, you're going to be very unhappy. And a lot of people are unhappy because they're sort of like, and part of it is a personality thing. Some people are just very justice-oriented, and they're very aware of what you did, what I did, and they're always, they'd be good lawyers. They're always conscious of, you're going to be miserable if you're living that way all the time. They add up everything they've done for their family and their kids and everything. And, I expect this to come back. And, there comes a point where you got to just say, okay, I'm going to give this, and I expect to return from the Lord. If they can pay me back, great. If not, the Lord will take care of it. Praise the Lord. Number 2, if you're going to have great relationships and walk in radical love, you've got to be willing to suffer with others when they're hurting and they're in pain. This is called empathy. Everybody say suffer with others. Number 2, willing to suffer with others in their pain. The Bible says, weep with those who weep. And there's going to be times people are going to be in pain, you have relationships with, and you're not going to be feeling the same way. It doesn't mean that if they're depressed, you have to become depressed, right? Or if they're unhappy, you have to be unhappy. But there is this side of it that you have to be willing to really enter in sometimes and cry with them. You've got to feel some of what's happening for them. And, sometimes today it's very easy to, just send off a tweet or a text, but not really allow ourselves to be present for people. We're losing something in this culture. There was a time that when somebody's in the hospital, people would visit them. People would go to each other's homes. They would take sacrificial moments out of their life. There was a time where kids' ball games were not so important that they would sacrifice church attendance and other relationships, going to home groups, and even living a balanced life because they have to make every softball game, every single baseball game, every single soccer game. I'm going to tell you something right now. If you're driving around as a taxi driver with your children in sports, they're doing too many sports. You can't do that all year round, all the time. If you're not having time for dinner together at night, and sometimes, and I'm going to tell you right now, but they could be the next, probably not. And what they need more than another game is a moment with their family, without their phone. And yes, they will roll their eyes and they will say, I can't believe. Oh, they do that. That's what they do. Parenting is like Survivor. Outwit, outplay, outlast. The problem is today, parents are so, we're just all so distracted. We're not living the life. Go analog. Turn the things off sometimes. If your kids aren't getting really upset with you, then now I'm telling you something, you're not doing something right. There ought to be times my child said they hated me. I told my parents I hated them. I know it's awful, but you probably did too. And if you didn't say it, you thought it. I mean, I didn't say it too, because there was a time where you didn't say everything you thought to an authority figure. Because there was something called a paddle. And the principal of the public school had it. And we're okay. I know some of you, oh my God, he's promoting abuse. No, I'm not. I'm just saying, we've become so hands-off with parenting. Kids don't raise themselves. And the television and the iPad is not the babysitter. We got to have the courage. All right. So you got to have some space in your life to weep with those who weep. You got to go there with some people. You got to be. And now the other side of it is, we have to be willing to enjoy other people's successes without envy or resentment. That is celebration. It says, be happy with those who are happy, or rejoice with those who rejoice. Now listen, it's really tough in life when you see other people getting ahead and you're not. And there are going to be seasons in a life where it feels like your favored friend has the favor bomb and you are just stuck in the same job at the same rate, doing the same thing. Or, they're having a baby and they're getting a new house, and you remember when you had babies and you got a new house and you're not having anything new right now. It's just we are addicted to new. And sometimes life is just hard work, showing up, grinding. It's not all, wow. Oh. Real life doesn't look like your news feed. Seriously. And really living a quality life requires us sometimes to really see what other people are doing and be happy for them, even though inside we're feeling envy. It's natural to feel envy. The first family's children were envious of each other, Cain and Abel. And the second sin recorded in the Bible, human sin, was Cain killing his brother Abel because he was envious and jealous of him and something he got from God that he didn't receive. And that has been in the human culture ever since. Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians 3, you are still carnal, for where there is envy and strife and division among you, are you not carnal and behaving like mere men or like people who don't know the Lord. So you can really know the Lord and behaving like somebody who doesn't. And one of the ways that demonstrate this, that the church is becoming infected by the culture, is when there's all these divisions and people are fighting. And I think if Paul was here today, he would rail against social media. Because Christians do more fighting and dividing on social media than they do loving each other. Sometimes. 1 Corinthians 13:4 says, love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Does not envy. 1 Peter 2:1, therefore lay aside malice, deceit, hypocrisy, envy, and evil speaking. So envy, jealousy. Sometimes you're going to see somebody get hit and you're going to, I just wish I had that. Why are they getting it? And just, it's sometimes what you need to do when somebody's really getting a string of great moments, just throw a party for them, just to kill your flesh. You know what we do? We see somebody else really successful and we feel bad about where we're at for some reason, and then we talk about them. We find something that's not perfect, and we find it makes us, our flesh feel better that we can find out what's really wrong and then share it with somebody else. A lot of times it's nothing more than just being jealous. It's hard for us to admit jealousy, but the Bible says that Christians, if the first century Christians had a problem with jealousy, you do too. I do. There's times I look and I think, I'm not going anywhere. Look at that. It's not beneficial. You got to kill it. And in great relationships, there's going to be times in friendships and marriage and in relationships with other Christians and other people in the world, you're going to feel like they're getting ahead and I'm not. David felt that way. He looked at all the unrighteous and he said, why do the unrighteous prosper and the people who are trying to do the right thing are always behind? And he wrote a whole psalm about it. But, at the end of the day, God keeps the books, and you've got to believe that what doesn't get settled up in this life will get settled up in the next. And sometimes, what if God's purpose for you is not to be celebrated? Can I just say something to you? You're not all going to be YouTube stars. You're not all going to be on television. You're not all going to be famous singers. Even some of you that are really gifted are going to, you've got a gift, and you're not going to necessarily be the next American Idol. Most of you will not be. Are you okay with that? You need to be. What if you're not the greatest? I know, because don't speak that negative stuff over me. You want to be the greatest you can be with the gifts you have in God and still have good character. Because the world can say you're a success and you can be a hot mess. Just read People, Newsweek, Time, and any gossip rag. You'll find out that everybody, when their stylists are gone, struggles. Number 5, are you with me? All right. Are we on number 4? No, 3 is celebrate. 2 is empathy. 4 became 5. It's 4. Willing to apologize and accept responsibility in the relationship. And I'm going to say this is humility. The Bible tells us that we need to be humble. In the 16th verse of Romans 9, it says, live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people, and don't think you know it all. We've got to be humble, and humility means I've got to say I'm sorry. Now I'm going to say something to you. If you can't remember the last time you really apologized, or if the people that know you don't remember the last time you apologized, there's something wrong. Because you're not as good as you think you are. Good relationships mean you say you're sorry. And there's times in a relationship, if one spouse is always angry and the other's always apologizing, it's not healthy. Sometimes you need to apologize for just being angry. Sometimes you need to apologize for being the chill queen for the last 7 days and not talking. Or the disconnected guy who's in his man cave and not listening to his wife or spending time with her. And you've got to own that. But I'm mad. So? I have a right. We're talking about as a Christian. You have all kinds of things you could have a right to do. Doesn't mean you're supposed to exercise your right. There are times in a relationship where you have to, with that other person, you're just going to have to be humble. And you got to say, I'm sorry, okay? Now, listen, that's a start, but you got to get it from your heart. Now, when I was in kindergarten, I had a best friend, and we were going to go. I think he was coming over to my house after school. We got on the bus together, and this other kid who was trying to bustle in our friendship came between us and kind of knocked me back. And the next thing I knew, my teeth were clamped into his back or his arm. I was biting his arm. And this kid began to scream. Well, within 3 minutes later, I was in the principal's office, off the bus, and this kid is crying. They pulled back his sleeve, and I mean, it was black and blue. And I thought, ooh, wow, I did that? You know. The principal looked at me and he said, John, why'd you do this? And I said, because he bumped in front of me, you know. And he said, you need to say you're sorry. I'm like, sorry. You know, I'm sorry. Here's the thing. When you're in kindergarten, you learn to say you're sorry when you do something wrong. And even if you've got justifications, it doesn't make it right. Sometimes you just got to say, I'm wrong, I'm sorry. And listen, Christians, we got to get to where it's easy to apologize. And if it's really hard for you to squeak out an apology, either you're not self-aware because you're not as perfect as you think you are, or you have a problem with being vulnerable. And if that's the case, God's got to work on you a little bit. Because in any great relationship, there's got to be I'm sorry's. And sometimes you got to say you're sorry when the other person's not sorry. You have to own your part of it, even if they don't do their part. Well, if I say I'm sorry, then they're going to think everything they did was right. Well, that's their problem. But before the Lord, think about the conflict. What did you do that was wrong? Whatever you did, you own your part of it. You don't own stuff that they think you did wrong that you don't see. You may say, I don't see that, but you need to own what you've done with real reflection. I can't tell you how many times I've been mad at my wife and I've had to go and say, I don't want to do this. Because if I say I'm sorry, then she's going to say, well, you ought to, and, you know. Or she's, you know, going to, I told you, you know. But I had said, I had to go and say, you know, honey, I'm sorry. And the thing is, sometimes you just got to say, I don't see what you're saying. I still feel upset about this, but I'm really sorry about this. The way that I spoke what I felt was true, but I didn't say it in a way that was loving, and I'm sorry. Okay. When's the last time you apologized for your part? Even if it's 90% their part, the 10% that you own it. All right. Number 5, a willingness to be loyal and confidential. If you're going to have a great relationship with someone else, you have to be willing to be loyal. Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend is always loyal and a brother is born to help in time of need. Do you know sometimes a person that you're in a relationship with is going to need you and it's going to require, you know, people don't need you when it's convenient. They need you when they need you. And sometimes they need you and you've got a movie going and you've got other things going and it can't always lay everything aside. But there are times when someone needs you, you just got to suck it up and show up. Right now, you know, I'm speaking about myself because I'm aware of my own, you know, my own stuff, right? But right now, I'm in this 2-week stretch where I've got 3 papers to write for seminary. I've got messages to prepare, end of the year stuff. My son's coming back. We're decorating. Anybody feel a little stressed out right now? It's just me. And I don't know what I was thinking. I adopted a dog. He was so cute. And I've been wanting my little furry friend for so long. And my wife said for her birthday 3.5 years ago, I could have a dog. So I found the dog online and I got the dog. Well, his name is, the breeders gave him the name Buster Brown. But I don't know if I'm going to keep that or go. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And so I'm going to drive him back. I'm going to go pick up my son from school and college in Oklahoma and drive him back and the breeders in Missouri. I'm going to pick up the dog. And like after I made this decision, I'm like, what in the heck was I thinking? I don't have time for this. And then Then I've got like 3 friends or pastors that have contacted me and asked me for some help. And I'm like, this is very inconvenient. I, I don't have any margin for this in my life right now. But you know what? Sometimes you just got to stay up a few hours later because they needed this right now. And sometimes there's some things I wanted to do. Like last night, there were some things I wanted to do. I had to set those things aside. And I spent some time with a young couple that needed some counseling. Inconvenience. Great relationships mean you're going to have to be inconvenienced. And sometimes it's not reciprocal for a while. People need a ride when they need a ride. And they don't always deserve it. But if you can help them, and God's putting it in your heart to help them, sometimes you just got to pay the price. Everybody say a friend is loyal. Proverbs 26 said, many will say they are loyal friends, but who can find one that is truly reliable? Somebody you can count on. Now, we're going to fail each other sometimes, and you can't do everything everybody asks of you, but great relationships require sacrifice. Loyalty means you are not going to betray that friend when they fail, when you're jealous of them, or when they've hurt you. Which brings me to confidentiality. Great relationships have some confidentiality. And we have a problem in our culture. Every human culture has this, but we've got a problem called gossip. Gossip is sharing information about somebody else behind their back that they don't know about. It doesn't have to be true. It can be false, or it can just be an impression. But when you're sharing something with somebody else that under the guise of a prayer request, and it's just an opportunity to talk, there's some cultures, everybody, and something happens in the family, every cousin, every aunt, every uncle, everybody knows. Nobody has any privacy. Sometimes you need to be confidential. There's things that happen with your kids that you may not tell the other kids. People have to know that they have some confidentiality in a relationship. Listen to this, Leviticus 19:16. Do not spread slanderous gossip among your people. Do not stand idly by when your neighbor's life is threatened. I am the Lord. So we're not supposed to spread gossip. This is in the law. David said this in Psalm 15:1. Who may worship in your sanctuary, Lord? Who may enter your presence on your holy hill? He answers the question. Those who lead upright lives, who do what is right, who speak the truth from honest hearts. Look at verse 3. Those who refuse to gossip or harm their neighbors or speak evil of their friends. These are people that have a closer relationship with God because they're not talking about their friends. Proverbs 11:13. A gossip goes around telling secrets, but those who are trustworthy can keep a confidence. I'm just telling my mother, listen, if somebody told you in confidence, you don't have a right to tell your mom. And I'm going to tell you something else. If somebody tells you something, I believe this with all my heart, and they've told you, and you hear it, and you know you're going to tell your spouse, you need to tell them, before you go any further, whatever you tell me, I'm going to feel the need to tell my spouse. Is it okay? Because listen, if there's someone else not present that's going to find this information out from you, they are present. And the person who's telling you needs to know they're not just talking to you, they're talking to your sister and your uncle and your brother and your kids, your best friend. If I'm having a conversation with somebody that's confidential, and I'll say, I always say, now, first of all, is this something you want to just share with me? Is it okay if I share this with my wife so we can pray together? And I look on their face and they're like, I don't think so. If I don't feel like I can hold this, I'll say, I cannot listen to the rest of this. You can't go any further because I can't keep this from my wife. Or I'll say, okay, because as a minister, we have a certain obligation to God to keep confidences. Ministers are like God. They know the worst about everybody but shouldn't tell anybody. And Christians ought to be loyal to each other and confidential. Gossip's a big problem. And by the way, gossip isn't just doing something secretly. Gossip is when you post something unkind about somebody else in social media. And I'm going to say something else. Gossip doesn't have to be somebody you know. It can even be somebody famous that you don't know. But if you're spreading negative information about that person, Were you there? Did you observe it? Well, I heard it reported on Breitbart, or I saw it on Huffington. If we've learned anything in the last 2 years, it's that you cannot believe everything you read or everything you hear. All that glitters is not gold. But before we get too judgmental about all the things that have been exposed in other people over the last year, the Bible tells us that you're not qualified to throw a stone unless there's no stuff in your life. And if there is, it's not yours to talk about. Do you know, you're going to find, if you were to cut out all the gossip, you would find yourself kind of bored and not saying a lot. Some of you were raised in families where everybody talks about everything, at least in the family. And you think it's okay, it's in the family. It's not okay if the other person doesn't want you to know. Well, it's just our culture. It doesn't mean it's right. It's not the Christian culture. There are things my wife and I know as ministers that have never been breathed to my children. They have no clue about. And they're never going to know. They don't need to know. There's times when people talk to my wife, and she does not tell me what they say because they don't want me to know, and I trust her to handle it. If somebody tells you something and you feel compelled to share it with somebody else, you need to go to the person who told you and say, listen, I can't hold this. I know I said that I would, but I can't. I've got to tell somebody else. Can you go with me? Can you give me a blessing to do this? And you negotiate with them. Because listen, loyalty and confidentiality is important in relationships. And the reason a lot of folks don't trust each other is because you're all talking about each other. And a lot of times the reason you don't trust somebody else is because you're not trustworthy. You just assume they're all going to gossip about you because that's what you do. Oh, can we talk today? Can we build some loyalty in Christian relationships? Praise the Lord. I did not come to hear this today, Pastor. Actually, you did. You got in your car and you drove here. So, all right. We're going to have to park here. I'm over 3 minutes. But, it's okay. We'll pick up next week. We're going to talk about how do I confront things? How do I have a good relationship with somebody? Which means sometimes you've got to say what you are avoiding saying. How do I speak the truth in love? Love sometimes has to speak, but there's a way to do it. We're going to talk about it next week. Praise the Lord. And you maybe say, this is Christmas.